Hey yo, it's Retro. Welcome to another video. Y'all, it's February. Happy Black History Month. Happy Valentine's Day. I got a very fun video today, as you can see by the title. My girlfriend gave me this idea, and the next one technically too. I thought it'd be a very fun video to make, something a little not too serious to like deep dive into comics like I usually do, but a very fun idea that I wanted to like bring to the channel. So today, as you can see by the title, we're talking about the worst couple matchups in comics. Everybody got their opinions. Everybody got ones that they hate, absolutely hate. I have a few. Two of them are from New 52, DC's New 52 initiative. One is, funnily enough, from DC's animated universe that technically it didn't happen, but let's just get into it. Let's get to it. So first, we're gonna start with, I guess there's six. I have six instead of five. I was gonna do a top five, but I ended up with the sixth one. So starting with number 6, we have MJ and Paul, Mary Jane Watson and Paul Rabin. Now, I'm not gonna go into the typical like line of thinking of why most people hate this matchup. I actually wasn't mad at it at first, at least when the whole backstory of Paul Rabin happened. Before I even get to it, how did MJ and Paul Rabin get together, and who the hell is Paul Rabin if you don't know like any comics, if you're not reading Amazing Spider-Man? Back when Zeb Wells started his Amazing Spider-Man run, he decided to time skip ahead about, I want to say, like 6 months from where the present was. That was about like 20 or so issues of Zeb Wells kind of just like writing stories that happened after those 6 months, after that 6-month time skip. And he finally decided to go into the backstory of who Paul is, where he come from, why is he so, I guess, important, why is MJ even with him, why is Mary Jane Watson with him? Because the last time we saw Mary Jane Watson and Peter Parker before Zeb Wells' run, they were together, or at least they were starting to get together. This whole thing happens where a villain from Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man stories from way back in Brand New Day, I'm talking like post One More Day era. Back then, Zeb Wells had like a couple Amazing Spider-Man stories. A lot of them were great, but he had a couple Amazing Spider-Man stories. There was this like villain that Zeb was really like wanting to use back then, and he never really fleshed them out completely until this run, basically. And we find out that Paul Rabin is the son of this villain, and essentially a son of like a genocidal murderer from this alternate dimension where geometry kind of takes over. It's very weird. People hate Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man run for a lot of good reasons, a lot of bad reasons. I have very mixed feelings about it. I like a lot of issues from the run. There are some stories like Dark Web and Gang War that were kind of a miss, but I really enjoyed the Tombstone conflict for the most part, and a lot of the one-off stories that Zeb Wells did. MJ and Paul get together in this alternate universe because MJ gets stuck there. She is living there for about like 5 years, I think. So she ages 5 years in that dimension, and she's stuck there, and she's essentially believing that she's never going to see Peter Parker again. So she does what I feel like a lot of people will do in that situation and just decides to move on. You know, Paul in this situation isn't a bad person. He is just helping MJ, and he's trying to ensure that she survives in this alternate dimension that he knows how to maneuver around. When it finally comes to time where Peter Parker gets MJ back home, he finds out that she has essentially moved on. Their relationship is out of the cards, basically. And you know, that hurts Peter Parker, of course. And moving forward, Paul and MJ their relationship just does not grow. We don't see a lot of what makes their relationship tick, except for like hints and bits here and there throughout Amazing Spider-Man, and now through All New Venom for whatever reason. Their relationship kind of sucks. I was hoping that it wasn't. I know a lot of fans hate this matchup before it was even given a chance. They were like, Peter Parker and MJ are supposed to be together. They want Peter and MJ to be together. Whatever, that's fine. MJ and Paul, though, I feel like they could have worked if there was some time given to them. But unfortunately, it feels like this whole Paul Rabin thing that Zeb Wells did kind of didn't feel like he really wanted to do it. I'm gonna be 100% honest. It feels like editorial just thought, oh, you know, you were using this villain back in Brand New Day, why don't you create this new character, why don't you create a son for him, have him get with MJ, and make this whole contrived alternate dimension age up situation. Sort of, not really, it was only 5 years, but they don't even harp on the fact that she's technically 5 years older. It's very strange. They even have kids that aren't their kids. They're like, I don't even know how to explain it. They didn't exist technically. It was weird. Their relationship could have been good, and that's part of the reason why I don't like them a lot, because it could have been really good if the writers took time to develop their relationship, but unfortunately they just didn't. And you can tell that there was no want to make this relationship work. Unfortunately, it was technically dead on arrival, and it's very unfortunate. I think Peter Parker and MJ are allowed to have relationships outside of each other. Shocker. Oh my god. You know, hot take, I guess. But yeah, they're both adults. If they're not together, they're allowed to date outside of each other. Like, grow the fuck up. But I think this was a huge miss, and I think there was a way to do this. They were stuck together and they had no choice but to technically be together. A relationship brewed and they ended up continuing it afterwards. They just don't work. I don't like it. I think it just feels very undercooked, and it's unfortunate because I feel like the relationship that Peter Parker gets into during this run is actually a lot better. Not the Felicia Hardy one, but I'm gonna get to that one. But I think the relationship that Peter Parker gets into during this run with Shay, who is a nurse at Ravencroft is essentially like Marvel's Arkham Asylum technically. Their relationship is really good. I genuinely love how they are written. Haters can hate, I don't care. I think it's a very interesting relationship for Peter Parker to get into, but I'll maybe talk about that another time. But yeah, MJ and Paul, very underdeveloped. Number 5, you're gonna have some Wolverine fans get mad at this, but Storm and Wolverine. There is no world where Storm and Wolverine work for me. That's maybe just my bias. As you can see, I have Storm up here, I have Storm down here. She's been one of my favorite mutants, probably my favorite mutant since I was a child. One of my favorite characters ever. Genuinely, I just feel like Storm and Wolverine work there was a fling. They just had a fling and that was it. That's when they work, when it's just a fling. When they are a full-blown relationship, to me, it just feels like Marvel are just trying to put together 2 of the most popular mutants in the X-Men just because they're both powerful, they're both popular, and there is a power couple that could be there. I don't think that is a good idea. I think Storm and obviously T'Challa are the 100% better matchup. Their relationship is extremely sweet. They're both royalty, they're both regal, they both come from a line of essentially gods and goddesses, or at least connection to them. They both allow each other to be human with each other. That's one of the reasons why I love their relationship so much. Storm and Wolverine, on the other hand, just does not work for me. I think, like I said, when it's a fling, it works because it's like, you know what, Storm is at a point where she's down and she just, you know, she has needs, and Wolverine can assist with that when she's not in a relationship. That's fine, but they just don't work. Their relationship doesn't, like, there's no substance to the relationship whatsoever. I think a lot of people like it just because it makes Wolverine look better as a person, but you know, nothing against Wolverine. I love Wolverine too, but Wolverine even has better romances as well. Very strange. I'm not a big fan of this pairing. This mainly blew up like recently because the ongoing Storm series had Storm and Wolverine fuck for like, you know, one night. They had like a one night stand and then Storm dipped, and you know, it was a sign of like, I think, vulnerability for Storm. I don't think there is going to be any sort of romance there because, well, there was no hint at it, and it seems like their paths are going like this, and that's fine. They should not be together. I loathe this relationship just because it feels like it only happened because Marvel wanted to separate Storm and T'Challa. That maybe that's not how it happened, but that's how I'm going to take it, and I don't care. So yeah, that's my thought. I just think Storm can do better. Like, I don't care. Call me a Wolverine hater, even though I'm not. I'm one of Wolverine's biggest fans, but she could do better. Simple as that. But you know, some people just have like a one night stand with somebody that's, you know, not that desirable, but it happens. But moving forward, we have number 4. I got Peter Parker and Felicia Hardy, Black Cats, in the modern day. I want to emphasize that I don't think they work currently. Back when Roger Stern was writing Spider-Man back in the 80s, they worked a lot because this was Black Cat's like being established. He was a character who was just, you know, being a cat burglar for the fun of it, but now she has kind of a purpose. She has grown past Peter Parker over the years. Their relationship at the beginning felt very preachy on Peter Parker's end, where he was very much trying to steer Felicia into the right. While there is some merit in that happening, I don't think that works now because Felicia Hardy is she's her own woman. She's a grown-ass woman. She wants to be a cat burglar, she can be a cat burglar, and that's okay. I think especially it doesn't work with the fact that Jed MacKay wrote a long, sprawling Black Cat saga that redefined the character for the modern day and allowed her to grow past the people that she was kind of stuck to, and it allowed her to be her own character now, where she can do other things. She's showing up in Avengers right now with Kang, and you know, she's allowed to do a lot of these very interesting things because she's not just tied to Spider-Man, and I think that's great for her. She doesn't need to be tied to Spider-Man. She was with Peter Parker in Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man run, and while it was very short-lived, I'm very happy for that. That also kind of spun a problem with the relationship because it was very short-lived. We saw next to nothing about it. At first, I was kind of open to it because I was like, you know what? Sometimes people just spin the block on an ex and like, you know, it happens, but yeah. I'm good. It was very underdeveloped. Another relationship that was very underdeveloped in the modern day. I don't know what's going on. Like, it feels like romance is dead, like in comics right now. It feels like we have a few, and let me preface. I think it feels like romance is dead in the big two comics, which is Marvel and DC, because it feels like so many comic runs are so focused on just the story, just the like overarching arc. They want to push these big stories, but they never really spend time and sit with the characters like civilian life, really. That's a huge problem that's going on in comics right now. It feels like we don't get too much of the superheroes as characters, as people. We just get the superhero aspect of it. And I don't read everything. Like I read a lot. I've read a lot, but I don't read everything printing right now, but that's just my perspective on what I'm reading. There are some comics that do delve into it, but very few. And the ones that do, some of them just aren't, to me, just aren't done well. Like, for example, Superman by Joshua Williamson. Is Joshua Williamson dubbed the Superman run as a romance comic? And I see it. You know, there is huge emphasis on Jimmy Olsen and Silver Banshee, huge emphasis on Clark and Lois. There is a lot of emphasis on Lex Luthor and Mercy Graves, but I'm gonna be real, it's not done well. I think there are better writers to handle stuff like that. I've seen Superman and Lois written a million times better in other comics, and like, you know, shorter ones too, but you have a 22 issue run where it's just like they get like cute moments here and there. Silver Banshee and Jimmy Olsen get like fleshed out once every 10 issues, and like they're cute, they're fun. I wish there was a Jimmy Olsen comic right now where like just chronicling the shit he gets into and the stuff that him and Silver Banshee get into, but it's like we really just don't get any of that, and it's, you know, it's sad. Like it does unfortunately feel like romance is kind of dead. I don't want to say it definitively is, but there are so many like matchups that I'm going to even talk about later, like matchups that I actually like that are not together, or there's just no real, you know, development for these characters, and it's unfortunate. That's number 4. Peter Parker and Felicia Hardy, just, they used to work, and I think it's time for people to move on. I think it's time for the writers and editorial to just move on from that pairing. They can be best friends, they can be really good friends, but I don't think they should be together whatsoever. Moving on to number 3, Batman and Wonder Woman. So weirdly enough, I have my list kind of segmented between Marvel and DC. As you can see, the first 3 were all Marvel pairings. Now the last 3 are going to be all DC pairings. Unfortunately, it just worked out that way that my top 3 most hated matchups are just DC ones, but you know, it is what it is. So Batman and Wonder Woman. I don't like this pairing whatsoever. I don't think it makes any sense. I think if Wonder Woman is going to be with a man at all, it's going to be Steve Trevor, and to me, I just don't. I'm in the camp, I'm in the house of Wonder Woman being a lesbian. I think she should be gay. I don't think she particularly works with a male counterpart whatsoever, especially ones like Batman and the next one I won't spoil, but you'll see when I talk about it. But I think Batman just also does not work with Wonder Woman. They don't gain anything from being together. Now, if they just have a one-night stand, cool, I guess, but it's also weird because, you know, they're part of the Trinity, and while there are adults in there and like, you know, people are allowed to just like, you know, walk around every now and again, I think it's just like optics wise, obviously some people are just not going to like fuck with it just because they're part of the Trinity. It's weird if Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman are tossing each other around, but it would work a little better if Superman and Batman were also, you know, doing stuff. But, you know, Batman and Wonder Woman just, they gain nothing from being together. I think Batman's best relationship obviously is either with Catwoman or with Talia al Ghul. And I think even now Talia and Bruce just like they don't work right now for my liking. I think that ship has sailed like years ago. But yeah, Batman, Wonder Woman, this is going to be very brief because I have little to say about this relationship outside of the fact that it just doesn't work for me. I think fundamentally as characters, they are so far off different paths, and maybe there's one writer who can come along and make them work. I'd be open to it. I'm not 100% like, oh, this can never work, I'm going to be mad if anybody writes it. No, I'm not like that. But if there is ever a person that writes it, well, I'll admit to it. But so far, like, it's only been done really in animation, and even then it was very like hint, not necessarily like they actually did anything. But yeah, that's one of my worst. I don't like it. Actually, as a matter of fact, Batman and Wonder Woman, also Superman and Wonder Woman are neck and neck for me. I just thought of another one that I really hate, and I'll talk about, that'll be my number one. But they're neck and neck. Superman and Wonder Woman should not be together either. I think I kind of like the way George Perez presents it as a weird fever dream that her and Superman get together, or like this like fascination with Superman being this out in the open superhero and she's, you know, trying to become that. I do see that like idolization for her, but I don't think that should turn into a relationship. I think it's more so like, weirdly enough, both Superman and Batman feel like older brothers to Wonder Woman, at least like for her post-crisis origin. But when it comes to like relationships, it's just, I don't know, I don't think it generally works. I think Wonder Woman should be with the woman. That's just my take. I don't even like her with Steve Trevor. I don't really, their relationship doesn't really work for me. But you know, it is what it is. Number 3 is Batman and Wonder Woman, and also Superman and Wonder Woman, just because they both feel the same way. It's also genuinely because Superman should be with Lois. Like, there is just like, if one day they break up and Superman is supposed to be with someone else, Superman ends up with someone else, you know, it happens. If it's written well, I'm gonna be open to it. But right now it's just, yeah, nah, like forever and always it feels like Batman and Catwoman, or Batman and Talia al Ghul, and then Superman and Lois. And Wonder Woman, we gonna get you a girl, bro. We gonna get you a girl. That, because Steve Trevor can't be your one and only. I'm sorry, that can't happen. He's not an interesting character whatsoever. There was one person that made their relationship work for me, and that was Liam Sharp, ironically enough, and Greg Rucka. Greg Rucka's Wonder Woman Year One. That's the only time they have worked for me. But outside of that, like, I'm just like kind of over it. I also only really liked Steve Trevor as an older brother figure. Back in post-crisis, when George Perez wrote Wonder Woman Gods and Monsters and his whole run, Steve Trevor was like an older brother to Wonder Woman. And then New 52 came around and they kind of switched it up completely, and it doesn't work for me. It's very weird. It doesn't work for me. So number 2, we have Red Hood and Starfire. And really, it's Starfire with whoever the fuck they were trying to get her with in New 52. New 52 was a weird time. You had Superman and Wonder Woman being together for whatever reason. You had Red Hood and Starfire being together, even though New 52 was technically saying, oh, everybody's history happened in the span of 5 years. So technically Dick Grayson and Starfire did go out during those 5 years, but then somehow she would still be young enough to go out with, or to be with Red Hood for a little bit, and then also be with Roy for a little bit. Starfire was getting like passed around. DC has this weird fetish with making Starfire look like a whore, even though she is like one of the sweetest people in DC's history because of the fact that she's just a pure person. And it's unfortunate because they treat her like a bimbo, and she's not. She's also genuinely very well versed in like culture and her culture, but you have some people who don't treat her like that, and it's very unfortunate. I hate it. Her character has kind of been butchered for the last like 15 years. The last time she was written very well for my liking, was really well as like consistently, was 52, which was like 15 years ago. This was before Infinite Crisis, I think, or Final Crisis, one of them. It's a long time ago. It was a long time ago. That was the last time Starfire was written like genuinely well, and since then it's just been up and down. I hate this pairing simply for the fact that it's just like, Starfire just does not get treated well. She's not treated as a human being. She's treated as a bimbo. She's treated as an object by these superheroes, by these writers, really. and she's not. Like, she is a very pure person that, like, some of these people would actually be very good friends with if they wrote with their hands outside of their pants. Like she would genuinely be very good friends with a lot of these people, but you know, unfortunately it just doesn't happen that way. Now moving on to my number one, my most hated couple ever. It's Batman and Batgirl. Yes, Batman and Batgirl have a history in some, not even some comics, and just in like some animation. For some reason, I hate that movie. The Killing Joke came out like years ago. That kind of started this whole thing where for some reason Batman and Batgirl has a relationship, and it's just weird. Because in every single like animated like movie, show, comic, really, Barbara is like another daughter. Barbara's like a daughter to Bruce, and I don't mean it like, oh, like, nah, Barbara's like a daughter to Bruce. The same way Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, all the Robins are like Bruce's sons. Barbara's like a daughter to Bruce, and the age gap there is ridiculous. I don't know what is wrong with people wanting to pair them up. Is it just because they both have Bat in the name? Probably, but like, damn, it's weird. Like, the Bat family is a family, and the only reason, like, you know, Barbara and Dick get together are literally because they grew up together. You know, they were friends for so long, and it happens. Like, that kind of stuff happens. They didn't grow up as like brother and sister. They grew up as just friends, like longtime friends. Same way that like Superman and Lana Lang, you know, had a relationship. So it's just like, I don't know. Batman and Batgirl is just like, it's a very pedophilic like relationship to me. I don't like it whatsoever. It does introduce some very alarming tones of grooming, because Batman kind of does like help her like become Batgirl and then eventually become Oracle. So it's just like, don't do that. Don't ever do some shit like that. I don't like that whatsoever. Batgirl and Batman should never ever be together. So now I've gone through my 7 or so like couples that I don't like. I want to talk about some of my favorite pairings ever, and it's just gonna be very brief, just because I don't want this video to run too long. But it is, I do want to talk about some of my favorite pairings, because, you know, love is amazing. So number 5, I got Cyclops and Emma Frost. Their relationship is amazing. I love how much of a power couple they feel like. I'm not a big fan of Cyclops and Jean Grey being together, so that may be why I gravitate so much more towards Cyclops and Emma Frost, but they work. Emma Frost pushes Cyclops to be this mutant revolutionary, and it pushes Cyclops to be so much more of who he is supposed to be, I guess, as a person than he's ever been. Like, it allows Cyclops to grow out of Charles Xavier's shadow, and I love that so much. It's a pairing I wish never died. Unfortunately, Marvel just did not want them to get together, and that's okay. Like, it happens, you know, it's big 2 comics, but in a perfect world they would be together right now. And Cyclops like pushes Emma Frost to like be more good, to focus more on the kids, to focus more on mutants as a species. They're both just like, they work together very well. They help each other a lot, and I think they complement each other in ways I feel like nobody really thought they would have, but they do, very like, genuinely they do. Number 4, I have Dick Grayson and Sean Sang. This is a sleeper couple just because they were together very briefly. But back in Nightwing Rebirth, Tim Seeley was writing Nightwing at this time. And this was during the time where DC was still kind of trying to redefine how DC's canon was working. So at this point, technically Dick Grayson had never gone off and become Nightwing in Bloodhaven. He had stayed in Gotham the entire time, and then he comes to Bloodhaven in this run, and he decides to stay, and he ends up getting with this like villain, sort of anti-hero kind of, named Sean Sang, who was also known as the Defacer. And she didn't necessarily get into a lot of like very villainous, you know, things, but she did have this community that she wanted to protect, and a lot of things that she did were very criminal. But it was one of those things where it's like she was a very lost person, and she was trying to find her way, and she also wanted this community to thrive. And here comes Dick Grayson kind of helping her, but also still allowing her to be true to herself. And it's a very different relationship for Dick Grayson, for a character who is like a golden child, you know, the boy wonder, whatever. To get with like an anti-hero is very different. It's very interesting. I sorely wish this relationship lasted a little longer. Barbara and Dick Grayson are great. Dick and Starfire are great, but I think, you know, Dick Grayson should have been allowed to be with Sean Sang for a little longer. Their relationship really only lasted, I think, for 8 issues, 7 issues. Like, it did not last very long, and it's a shame. I wish it did, but they were very sweet. And if you want to read their like love, basically, I'm also gonna have a separate video talking about my favorite romance comics. I'm gonna talk about that there. But here, Dick Grayson and Sean Sang, very great romance. One of my favorite couples. A very underrated couple for me. I genuinely love them a lot. Number 3, Batman and Catwoman. Again, like I said, I'm gonna talk about them a little more in my next video. Batman and Catwoman they're such a, I said this in my Superman Bendis retrospective, but their relationship is very mature. It's very adult. It's very contemporary. A relationship that doesn't need to be defined by titles, by marriage. You know, they're both superheroes. They both don't even follow the law. So why should they have to be binded by law, by, you know, have a union by law? It's a very interesting thing. Their love is forever. And that's one of the things that Tom King does very well in his Batman run. It's their romance. Going back to one of the very first Batman comics and harkening back to that and kind of doing a full circle for their romance. I think it's very nice. I think it's very sweet. I think they are the ultimate couple for me, especially in DC. They're the ultimate couple. I know a lot of people, they say Clark and Lois, but I'm partial to Batman and Catwoman. You got number 2, Monica Rambeau and Adam Brashear. Another pairing where they are 2 extremely powerful people who are very vulnerable with each other, very human with each other. They allow each other to be very vulnerable, and it's a quality in the relationship that I think is very important, especially in superhero comics. When you just pair people together just because they should be, because they're both powerful, a lot of times it's gonna miss. But for Monica Rambeau and for Adam Brashear, their relationship is beautiful. It's beautiful. I wish they were still together. Al Ewing wrote them in the Ultimates, and their relationship there, that's when it blossomed. That's when it really comes together. Beautiful, beautiful pairing. I love them so much. And like, look, Black love. I'm here for Black love. I love it. Unfortunate that they're not together anymore, but there was a little bit of, a hint that maybe Monica Rambeau could be with Dr. Voodoo. I do kind of want to see that, but until that happens, it hasn't happened, but until that happens, Monica Rambeau and Adam Brashear are a phenomenal pairing. I love them so much. Yeah, read The Ultimates by Al Ewing. Genuinely like an amazing comic, but also for their romance, it's written very well. They are written amazingly. And then my number 1, not really a number 1. This is just like, I'm just like counting down from 5 to 1. Sam Wilson and Misty Knight, power couple. Captain America: Symbol of Truth by Tochi Onyebuchi is amazing, and it is the best showcasing of Sam Wilson as Captain America, and it's also the best showcase of Sam Wilson and Misty Knight's relationship. I love them. Again, Black love. I'm here for it. I love it. I can't get enough of it. If you want to read some of their stories together, it is mostly in there. I believe Nick Spencer's Sam Wilson Captain America run does touch on it a bit. I really love how Onyebuchi writes them. And they look amazing. They look gorgeous together. I'm sorry, like they look amazing together, and I love them. I want more of them. I wish Onyebuchi could write more of them. However, Evan Narcisse and Greg Pak are writing Sam Wilson right now, which is amazing. I'm mad that it's a mini series, but it is what it is. Marvel's gonna Marvel. We literally saw Sam Wilson, carrying an ongoing, and it ended when Onyebuchi wanted to end it. So give him another ongoing. Give him another 30 issues. I don't care. Especially with Evan Narcisse. I love him as a writer, so let it happen, please. But yeah, that is Love Stinks, the worst comic couples to me. I am appalled by some of these. No, I'm kidding. Some of these I genuinely just don't like, and I'm glad that they don't exist anymore. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you leave a like, subscribe, comment some of y'all favorites couples and some of y'all most hated couples and what stories they're from, and I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.